In a death battle with a level playing field, two challengers from the world of A Song of Ice and Fire are going head-to-head in a battle of brawn, brain, and leadership. You, the fans, have voted, and your champion's chosen. Going head-to-head today is the calculating Tywin Lannister versus the righteous Stannis Baratheon. So, let's get to know our combatants a little better. Born the son of the oafish Tytos Lannister, Tywin decided at a very young age that he would carve out his own future for his family. After the neighboring houses Rhaen and Tarbeck mocked and challenged his father, Tywin reacted quickly to put down both threats in a massacre that was later immortalized in the song, The Rains of Castamere. Catching the eye of the then-king Aerys Targaryen II, Tywin at just 20 years old became the Hand of the King. And although he and Aerys eventually had a falling out, Tywin went on to become Hand of the King much later on for both his grandsons Joffrey and Tommen. Tywin is what most would call a political genius, with decades of experience both on the battlefield and on the small council of the king. His greatest strength is seeing the end goal, always knowing when to strike and when to jump ship to the other side. Silver-tongued and golden-palmed, when his persuasive words fail him, he knows how to put his vast amount of wealth to work for him. But now a relatively aged man, Tywin wants nothing more than to solidify his family name for generations to come. His greatest weakness lies in his expectations of his children, who are often uncooperative in his goal, to say the least. Tywin is very much aware of the fact that respect is an illusion that one projects onto his subjects. He fears the embarrassment that his father faced, and so is desperate to avoid coming to terms with what his children have been up to. Although experienced, Tywin doesn't have a perfect military record either. The Greyjoys were able to burn Tywin's entire fleet during their rebellion, and Robb Stark had his number on most occasions during his rebellion. However, it would be a grave mistake to forget that in both instances, Tywin had the last laugh. At just 13 years old, Stannis watched from his family home of Storm's End as his mother and father's ship broke apart in a storm in the seas below. The event shaped Stannis, and from then on he refused to put faith in any gods that would be cruel enough to kill his parents. During his older brother Robert's rebellion, Stannis' ever-serious and stubborn attitude soon became legend when he held Storm's End for over a year in the Tyrell siege, choosing instead to eat rats and dogs rather than go back on his word. Robert, after his rebellion, became king, and leaving no trueborn heirs after his death years later, Stannis legally became the rightful king of Westeros. But, with a lack of support from the nation and a failed attack on King's Landing, Stannis has since realized that it takes protecting a kingdom to earn its respect. Stannis' strength lies in his determination and his never-say-die attitude. Stannis will always fight for what he believes in, even if it means being the first man on the battlefield and the last man off of it. He's unmoved by acts of flattery, and judges people on their merits alone, with no preconception to status or origin. Stannis' stubbornness has served him well in the past, but it isn't uncommon that it will get him into trouble either, making him unwilling to compromise. Even more so is Stannis' impatience. Once he gets an idea to do something, his course of action is to always strike as soon as possible, rather than to strike when the time is right. Both men are experienced, but will Tywin be able to outmaneuver Stannis, or will the Golden Lion be unable to stop a fiery charge from the antlers of this crusading stag? You've met them, so let's see how they stack up. This is Lord Tywin Lannister against King Stannis Baratheon. Our first category is physical prowess. How well would these two stack up in a one-on-one fight? Remember, there's no outside help, and this category is strictly 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Both men are past their physical peak due to age, but Tywin much more so than Stannis. Tywin might have been more competitive in his early years, with all the combat and swordsmanship training Lannister gold can buy. Tywin once upon a time was probably a pretty good fighter, but nowadays while he might be in fairly decent shape for his age, you still can't rule out the fact that he is a 58-year-old man, who for the last few years has been more of a tactician for others rather than a soldier himself. Here Tywin earns a 4 in strength, a 5 in agility, and a 5 in constitution. While the younger Stannis, with just as much highborn training, a lot more current battle experience, and the tough Baratheon warrior genetics, gets a 6.5 in strength, a 6.5 in agility, and an 8 in constitution. This gives Stannis a physical prowess score of 21, beating out Tywin's 14-point score. In a one-on-one fight, Stannis comes out on top against the head of the Lannister household. Both men prefer the standard Westerosi longsword, and both would fight skillfully, trading blows for a while. But Stannis would eventually start to outlast and overpower anything Tywin had to throw at him. Our next category is mental prowess. In the labyrinth that is Game of Thrones, who would be able to best use their wisdom and knowledge to outmaneuver or trick the other? Tywin has spent much of his life in the company of Westeros' most dangerous schemers. To survive as long as he did in King's Landing as the Hand of the King takes incredible amounts of skill, perception, and even creativity to master the way of life here. Tywin earns himself a whopping 9 in intelligence and intuition, and a slightly lesser but still impressive 8 for his will. Because when it comes to his family, Tywin has a slight weakness of getting hot under the collar and letting his guard down. While Stannis has it in him to be a brilliant mind, he often shrugs off what is the most tactical for what he feels in his mind is the right or just way to go about doing things. He earns a fairly low 6 for intelligence and a 4 for intuition. He has a pretty well-grounded guy advising him, but like I said earlier, no outside help. One thing Stannis does make up for in spades is his strength of will, snagging himself a perfect 10 in this one. I mean, this guy would literally starve to death before he broke a promise. Stannis reaps a decent 20 in this category, but Tywin beats him out with a high 26. Tywin knows how to execute a plan, and more importantly, he knows how to reassess and change it if he's hit with a variable. Stannis knows his military strategies, but he'll often generalize and be unopen to new ideas. Tywin might have a hard time getting inside Stannis' head, but without a ton of adaptive countering on Stannis' side of things, Tywin would outshine him. For the tiebreaker between these two, we have political prowess, the ability to charm, bribe, or order someone to fight or scheme for you. And Tywin is no slouch when it comes to any of these things. Years in politics means he knows how to get people on his side. Tywin has his persuasion skills nailed down. He earns a 7 for his ability to sweet-talk someone, and unsurprisingly a perfect 10 for his Lannister wealth. His status as Hand of the King and Warden of the West is pretty incredible as well, giving him a 9. Stannis right off the bat scores an extremely low 2 for charisma. We the fans might love him, but it takes a seriously off-putting personality to be the rightful king and still have almost no one backing you. Stannis doesn't really have any lands or assets to his name right now either, so unfortunately for wealth he only earns a 3. And although his title of being the rightful, although somewhat exiled king earns him a 7, the win goes to Tywin's 26 over Stannis' 12. Something that has really plagued poor Stannis since the beginning just happens to be what his opponent's greatest strength is. So, with Tywin winning in both the mental and political prowess categories, he's the winner of this week's Trial by Combat. Don't worry, Manus, I still love you. Please like and subscribe, and drop a name in the comments below for who you want to see next week on Westeros Brawls. Also, I know in the TV series Tywin is actually broke and Stannis gets alone, but that was really weird and not in the book, so I'm not gonna count it.